From dragging on for too long to Keanu Reeves just getting too old, there are many reasons that John Wick 5 just might not happen. That's right, we might not be seeing our favorite assassin with the heart of gold again. But what's really going on? Rumor had it that the directors and Keanu all decided that John Wick 4 was going to be the last entry in the series. But that cliffhanger at the end of the movie says otherwise. When we last left our hero, he had just barely survived the events of John Wick 3, which saw him declared excommunicado from the international organization of assassins he used to work for.
John Wick, excommunicado. In effect, 1 minute.
With a bounty on his head and nowhere to turn, John set out to take on the High Table, the group of powerful assassins who controlled the underworld. Along the way, he teamed up with some old allies, including his mentor Winston and the Bowery King, and faced off against some new enemies, including a deadly ballerina assassin. This movie was just wild. It literally reignited everyone's love for action movies. Even though they had become a sort of dying art recently. And Chapter 4 was literally so good that it had the highest box office earnings out of all the John Wick movies. So obviously they can't leave the series hanging there when it has so much potential. But let's not talk about why it should happen. It's more important to discuss why it shouldn't and may never happen. Some franchises just don't know when to end, like Fast and the Furious and Mission Impossible. And the John Wick series is in the same danger zone. I mean, it's gearing up for the 5th installment. Mission Impossible can be made again and again because each time they have a new mission.
Better have good news for me. Is he here? I got it. Dunhill later. I'll be there. And no one will be following me. Just make sure no one's following me.
But John Wick doesn't have the same luxury. It can only be stretched so far without it coming off as repetitive. It's a story about a guy who reluctantly joins the underground mercenary world again, and that too only to avenge his dog and the memory of his wife. But bringing him back again and again is just going to ruin the impact of the character. 5 movies just sounds like a huge milestone to cross, and it's one that the directors might not clear with the best marks, because right now, fans are still interested in the movies. After the extraordinary success of John Wick's first 4 big screen appearances, Lionsgate has approved a back-to-back 5th chapter that will continue Baba Yaga's adventures. And maybe bring them to a close. There has been no official announcement regarding whether or not the 5th John Wick film will be the final one, but the cliffhanger in Parabellum hinted at sort of a Wickverse endgame, in which John and the Bowery King battle the High Table.
You better cut him to the quick. So, let me ask you, John, how do you feel?
But it also seems like the films are only getting better and better and are picking up their stride. Usually, the thing is that franchises end up being dragged for so long that they unintentionally ruin their own reputation. But when the directors do decide to end things, it needs to end on an extremely high note, one that's worthy of the Wick universe. There aren't many examples of action film franchise endings that were actually well received. Most of them, like A Good Day to Die Hard and Rambo Last Blood, managed to become so detached from what made their franchise so beloved in the beginning that their endings felt less like big wrap-ups and satisfying conclusions, and more like the franchise being taken out behind the shed and being put out of its misery. The John Wick series is currently extremely popular, but the creators have got to be careful not to allow it to get too out of hand and harm the series' reputation. It's also getting extremely risky, because the first movie had Wick going out and avenging his dog. Then in the second, he ends up taking out a powerful enemy. And in the third movie, he faces the consequences of his actions. Now in the 5th, he's going to be against the entire High Table organization. The franchise is already being elevated so much. How much else can they elevate things before it literally loses all meaning?
Where?
Here, just below my floating rib. Be sure not to hit my leg. Oh, wait! One may not be enough.
By the 10th movie, he's going to be going against God or something with the way things are going. So yeah, there are only so many times the stakes can be raised, and ending the series on a good note can make all the difference. But another reason they should quit while they're ahead: Keanu Reeves isn't going to stay this young forever. He looks kinda like a vampire, and still has the same boyish charm from when he did Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But that doesn't mean he isn't getting older like the rest of us. Even though he still brought his A-game to every single action sequence in the John Wick series, Keanu Reeves looks like his age was catching up to him in most of the fight scenes in Parabellum. But the movie played it off really smartly, and his opponents recognized how old he was and would give him time to recover in between fights. He does each and every stunt himself, apart from the really dangerous ones obviously, and is reported to have literally learned how to perform gun fu and how to ride horses for his role. And the climax of the series is going to be beautiful. Everyone can tell that it's building up to something big. Maybe they're planning on doing something like the Infinity Saga of Marvel, and we're going to be getting some huge showdown by the last movie. But before that, John Wick needs a proper ending. Right now, the movie feels a lot like a serial. One episode after the other, Wick takes on a new challenge each time. So all it needs now is to up the stakes responsibly and build an endgame.
Welcome to Casablanca, Mr. Wick.
Thanks.
Right now, there are a lot of loose ends that haven't really been resolved, and all of those need to end for the story to shut down too. But 5 movies are really stretching how much John Wick I can see. Even the director was done with it after the 3rd movie. So why is there a 5th movie even being made? I guess it's because Chad Stahelski wasn't as done with the movies as he said he was. Keanu Reeves is set to return once again, and after the cliffhanger Chapter 4 ended on, I'm glad that he is, because I seriously would have gone on a rampage if he wasn't. Stahelski came for an interview and revealed that he was done with the universe, and so was Keanu. They both wanted the same thing: to end the franchise before it got too out of hand, and they actually wanted to end on a cliffhanger. But after the movie was released, they realized fans would literally skin them alive if they didn't resolve what they started. So they got to work once again. But I guess this isn't really surprising, considering what Stahelski said before. He said that fans wanted a happy ending for Wick, but if you really thought about it, how could his story really end? By the last movie, he'd have probably killed just around 400 to 500 people. What kind of ending does a man like that even deserve? He can't just ride off into the sunset and walk away after everything he's had to do, and neither can he settle down and start a family again. Not with the idea that any one of his enemies could find them and get to them. So all in all, don't get your hopes up for any happy ending, because it's just a matter of time before he runs out of luck. Well, that's all for why John Wick 5 may never happen.